Every evening when Ethan came home from work, his hammock was already moving. It swung slowly under the twin suns as if someone had just left it. He thought it was the wind, until one night he saw a tail. It wasn't human. Ethan froze in the doorway, staring at the small shape curled up in his hammock. The moonlight fell across soft silver fur and pointed ears. An alien girl, was lying there, eyes half closed, breathing softly. Her tail swayed lazily as if she didn't care she had been caught. "Hey," Ethan said quietly. "That's my hammock." The girl opened her eyes. They were bright yellow, glowing faintly like stars. She blinked at him, then stretched with a yawn that showed sharp little teeth. "Oh, hello, human," she said, her voice soft but playful. "I was just resting." "Resting?" Ethan raised an eyebrow. "In my hammock?" She smiled, her small fangs flashing. "It feels nice, warm, safe." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. The colonies were peaceful, but humans rarely mixed with alien races this closely, especially the Felirians, cat-like people known for being private and proud. "Does your family know you're here?" he asked. She shook her head quickly, her ears twitching. "They don't care where I go. I'm just the strange one." Something in her tone made Ethan pause. She didn't look dangerous, just tired. Her fur glowed faintly in the dim light, and her thin arms wrapped around the hammock ropes like it was the only safe place in the world. "I'm Ethan," he said at last. "You are?" "Lyra," she answered. Her tail flicked behind her. "I live next door. I see you working on machines all the time. You look kind." Ethan couldn't help a small laugh. "Kind enough to let strangers steal my hammock?" "Maybe," she said, smiling wider. Then in a whisper, "Maybe you won't tell anyone I was here?" He sighed. "All right, Lyra, but only tonight." She nodded quickly, happiness flashing across her face. She lay back again, eyes half closing, and murmured, "It smells like sun and trees. Your hammock feels like peace." Ethan sat on the porch pretending not to watch her, but he couldn't help it. Her calm breathing, the way her tail curled when she dreamed. It was oddly peaceful, just sitting there listening to the quiet night sounds of the colony. When he finally went inside, he looked back one last time. Lyra was asleep, curled like a silver cat, her ears twitching softly. The next morning, she was gone. But that evening, when he came home again, the hammock was moving once more. This time she waved at him from it, grinning. "Hi, Ethan." "You again?" he said, trying to sound annoyed but failing. "I told you," she said innocently. "It feels like peace." She began asking him questions about humans, his job, and why he lived alone. Ethan found himself talking more than he had in months. She listened with wide eyes and an honest smile. As night fell, she looked at the stars and said quietly, "Humans build homes with light and sound, but your hammock, it's soft. It's kind. I like that." Ethan felt something stir in his chest, something between amusement and sadness. "You can come by during the day," he said finally, "but not at night, deal?" Her golden eyes lit up. "Deal." Then with a mischievous grin, she added, "But if the stars call me here, I can't promise I'll listen to rules." He laughed despite himself. She jumped lightly from the hammock, tail swishing behind her, and vanished into the shadows of her yard. Ethan looked at the swinging hammock under the moons. He didn't know it yet, but that was the night everything changed. The next few days turned into a quiet routine. Every morning, Ethan would find small things left on his porch, a shiny stone, a feather, or a bunch of blue flowers that smelled like rain. And every evening, the hammock would be swinging again. Lyra always came with a smile. She'd stretch in the sunlight, her tail flicking lazily, and ask questions that never seemed to end. "Why do humans build square houses? Why do you drink something called coffee? Why do you wear shoes inside?" Ethan would laugh, trying to answer her endless curiosity. She was strange, yes, but in a warm, innocent way. Sometimes she would sit beside him while he fixed broken drones, her golden eyes watching his hands move. "You make things work again," she said one day. "Machines, metal, even broken things." "That's my job," he replied, tightening a screw. She looked at him for a moment and whispered, "Can you fix people too?" He stopped. The question hit him harder than it should have. "Sometimes," he said softly. "But people are harder than machines," Lyra didn't reply. She turned her face away, pretending to watch the wind move through the trees. That's when Ethan noticed it, faint red marks on her wrist, half hidden under her fur. "What happened to your arm?" he asked. She flinched and quickly pulled it back. "It's nothing." "I fell, Lyra," he said gently. "That's not a fall." Her ears flattened. Her voice became small. "My clan doesn't like that I visit humans. They think I'm broken." Ethan frowned. "Broken? I don't fight. I don't hiss. I don't act like a Felirian should," she said, looking down. "They say I act too human. They say I shame them." For a moment, Ethan didn't know what to say. He saw the way her tail drooped, the way her voice trembled. She looked like someone trying to hide sadness behind a smile. "You're not broken," he said finally. "You're just different. And that's fine." She looked at him, eyes wet and shining. "You really think so?" "I know so," Ethan said with a small smile. "Besides, the hammock seems to like you." That made her laugh, a soft musical sound that melted the quiet air. But as the sun dipped lower, her laughter faded. She grew distant again, her gaze lost in the horizon. That night, Ethan found her outside again, sitting in the hammock alone. Her fur shimmered under the moonlight. He was about to speak when he heard it, a faint sound like a sob. She was crying. "Lyra?" he whispered. She wiped her face quickly. "I'm fine, I just don't fit anywhere. Not with them, not with anyone." Ethan sat beside her. The hammock shifted under their weight. "You can stay here for a while," he said softly. "As long as you need." Her eyes widened. "You'd really let me?" "Why not?" he said. "The hammock's big enough for two." For a long time they sat there together in silence. The wind rustled the leaves and the twin moons cast silver light across her face. Lyra leaned back, her head resting lightly against the ropes. "You know," she murmured, "when I first came here I just wanted to feel peace for one night. But now, I feel something else, something I don't have a word for." Ethan glanced at her, unsure how to answer. Then came a sound and a sharp knock at the gate. Lyra froze. Her ears twitched, her tail stiffened. Voices called out from the shadows. "Open up, human. We're looking for a Felirian girl." Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Lyra grabbed his arm, eyes wide with fear. "Please," she whispered. "Don't let them find me." The night turned silent again, heavy with tension. Ethan stood between her and the door, knowing that this time, letting her stay meant breaking more than just rules. The knocking grew louder. The metal gate shook under heavy fists. Ethan's heart pounded as he turned off the porch light. "Stay quiet," he whispered to Lyra. She crouched low behind the hammock, her tail wrapped around her legs, her glowing eyes filled with fear. The door creaked open. 3 tall Felirians stood outside, their fur dark and armor reflecting the pale moonlight. Their sharp faces looked like carved stone, and their golden eyes flickered with cold suspicion. The one in front spoke first, his voice low and deep. "Human, we're looking for a young one. Silver fur? Small. Disobedient." Ethan forced his expression to stay calm. "Haven't seen anyone like that." The leader sniffed the air slightly, his nose twitching. "Her scent is here." "I fix machines," Ethan said quickly. "Not aliens." For a moment, none of them moved. The only sound was the wind brushing through the trees. Then the leader stepped closer, his sharp claws clicking on the porch floor. "She carries forbidden blood," he said slowly. "Half-breed. A danger to both our kinds. If you see her, report it." Ethan met his gaze. "If I do," he said softly, "I'll let you know." The Felirian stared at him for a long second, then turned and disappeared into the night shadows, their glowing eyes fading behind the trees. Ethan closed the door and exhaled sharply. His hands were shaking. From the corner, a soft whisper. "Are they gone?" He turned. Lyra was trembling, her fur bristling slightly. "They're gone," he said, "but they'll come back." Lyra hugged her knees tightly, whispering, "I told you." "I'm not supposed to be here. Who are they?" Ethan asked. "My clan's guards," she said quietly. "They call me a defect. I was born with mixed blood, not full Felirian. My father was human." Ethan stared at her, stunned. "A hybrid?" She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "They say I don't belong to either world, that my existence is shame." He knelt beside her, his voice calm. "You belong here. You belong where someone treats you with kindness." Lyra looked up, her eyes wet and shining. "No one ever said that to me before." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll say it again. For the next few days, she didn't leave his yard. She helped him with his work, sorting parts, holding tools, and sometimes just sitting beside him in silence. Ethan began to enjoy her presence more than he wanted to admit. Sometimes she would hum softly, a melody so gentle it made his chest ache. At night they would sit in the hammock together looking up at the twin moons, but peace never lasts long. One morning while Ethan was repairing a small drone, his communicator beeped. The message appeared in bright red letters. Attention. Unauthorized contact between humans and Felirians under review. Citizens under investigation, Ethan Core. His stomach tightened. They knew. Lyra saw his face and stepped closer. What's wrong? They're watching me, he said. Someone reported us. Her ears flattened. You should send me away, she whispered. Before they hurt you. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. The silver fur, the hopeful eyes, the fragile peace she brought into his lonely world. No, he said firmly. You stay. Lyra's lips trembled. Why? Because, he said quietly. You deserve to feel safe somewhere, even if it costs me. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she smiled weakly. Humans are strange. You risk so much for someone not like you. He looked at her, a small grin tugging at his lips. Maybe that's what makes us human. As night fell, Lyra sat back in the hammock again, her eyes half closed, whispering softly. They'll come again. But this time they won't just knock. The wind shifted. In the distance, red lights flashed, silent, approaching, growing brighter. The night sky was restless. The twin moons hung low, casting silver streaks across Ethan's yard. His tools were packed away, lights dimmed, and yet his heart refused to settle. Lyra sat quietly in the hammock, her tail curled tight around her body. The easy smiles she used to wear were gone. Her ears twitched at every sound, every rustle of leaves, every chirp in the dark. They'll come for me, she whispered. Maybe tonight. Ethan leaned against the porch railing, arms crossed. Then I'll be ready. She looked up, eyes glimmering. You don't understand. They don't arrest. They erase, Ethan frowned. Erase? Lyra nodded slowly. My people are terrified of what I am. I'm not just half human, I'm the first created one. A test subject, a blend made in a lab long ago. My body carries codes from both species. They fear it. Ethan felt his chest tighten. You mean, you were an experiment? Yes, her voice cracked. When the war ended, both sides tried to make peace by sharing DNA. They wanted to build a new generation, one that could understand both hearts. But the project failed. All others died before birth. I was the only one who lived. She hugged herself. My clan said I was cursed. The humans pretended I never existed. For a long moment, Ethan said nothing. The soft creaking of the hammock filled the air. Then he walked closer and crouched beside her. You survived, he said firmly. That means something. You're proof that peace can exist. Her golden eyes lifted to meet his. You really believe that? I have to, he said. Because if people like you don't belong anywhere, then maybe none of us do. Lyra blinked, her lips trembling between a smile and a sob. She reached out slowly and touched his hand, claws soft against his skin. Ethan, she whispered, you're too kind for this world. Before he could answer, thunder rolled across the sky. The wind howled through the trees, and the colony's power grid flickered out. Darkness swallowed the valley. Lyra shivered and pressed closer, her fur standing on end. The storm came early. Stay inside, Ethan said, but she shook her head. The hammock feels safer, she said softly. Can I stay here just tonight? Ethan hesitated, then nodded. All right. But you'll catch a cold out here, she smiled faintly. Cats don't catch colds. Lightning flashed, revealing her face in the glow, fragile, beautiful, and full of fear. She curled up beside him in the hammock as the rain began to fall, their world shrinking to the rhythm of wind and heartbeat. Ethan, she murmured through the storm, promise me something, anything. If they take me, don't let them hurt you for me. He stared at her, rain dripping from his hair. I don't make promises I don't keep. The hammock swayed gently like a cradle in the storm. For a while there was silence, but far beyond the thunder a faint hum began to rise, mechanical, steady, and growing louder. Ethan looked toward the horizon. Bright red beams sliced through the rain. Drones, dozens of them scanning through the darkness. Lyra's eyes widened. They found me. Ethan jumped to his feet, heart pounding.
Inside now!
Too late. One of the drones turned, its scanner locking on their coordinates. A flash of light snapped through the rain, capturing a perfect image, Ethan and Lyra together in the hammock. The drone whirred, sending the image to the main server before vanishing into the storm. Lyra grabbed his arm. They have proof now. Ethan stared into the distance, his jaw tight. Then we run before they come. She looked up at him, tears mixing with rain. Run where? He looked at her, the only living bridge between two worlds. Anywhere, he said, as long as it's not without you. The thunder swallowed their words, and above the clouds, unseen satellites blinked alive, carrying their faces across the system. The hunt had begun. The colony dawn broke in silence. No birds, no hum of distant engines, only a strange stillness that pressed against the air like a warning. Ethan woke up to the faint scent of smoke. Lyra was already gone from the hammock. Panic flared in his chest. He ran outside barefoot, eyes scanning the tree line. Then he saw them, black armored patrols, human and Felirian soldiers together combing through the mist. They moved with cold precision, scanners sweeping over every door, every roof. By order of the Unified Authority, a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. The hybrid known as Lyra has been located. All civilians stand down. Ethan's stomach turned cold. He ducked back inside, his heart pounding. The message repeated. Lyra had been spotted near the eastern ridge, running toward the water towers. He grabbed his toolkit and sprinted out the back door. Rain dripped from the leaves and mud clung to his boots. He could still see the faint prints of small clawed feet in the dirt. She had fled alone. Lyra, he shouted, voice breaking in the wind. Come back. A gunshot echoed. Then another. He ran faster, breath ragged, his mind racing through every fear. When he finally reached the ridge, he froze. Two drones hovered above a figure struggling against restraints. Silver fur, glowing eyes. Lyra. She was surrounded by guards. One of them, a Felirian commander, held her by the arm. Her head hung low, her tail limp. Please, she said weakly, I didn't hurt anyone. Silence, the commander hissed. You are a mistake that must be erased. Ethan's rage burned like fire. He looked down at the drone beside him, a maintenance model he'd repaired weeks ago. His mind clicked. He opened his toolkit, rewired the drone's control chip, and sent it buzzing toward the soldiers. A sharp flash and the drone exploded, scattering smoke and debris. Ethan ran through the chaos, grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her free. Ethan, she gasped. You came back always, he said. Now move. They sprinted downhill as more drones filled the sky. Alarms blared through the valley. Red beams scanned the fields, cutting through fog. Ethan led her into an abandoned service tunnel beneath the old water plant. Lyra stumbled, her breath ragged. You shouldn't have done that, she said. They'll punish you. He turned to her, gripping her shoulders. I don't care what they do to me. You're not just some experiment. You're alive. That means something. Her eyes softened, but before she could reply, a deep metallic voice echoed through the tunnel. Subject Lyra detected. Human accomplice identified, Ethan Core. Surrender immediately. A blue light swept through the darkness. An automated guard unit, massive and armed. Ethan pushed Lyra behind him. Go, he said. I'll hold them off. No, she shouted, grabbing his hand. We go together. He hesitated and then nodded. Together. They ran deeper into the tunnel, the robot's footsteps shaking the ground. Ahead, a sealed gate blocked the way. Ethan dropped to his knees, frantically prying open the control panel. Sensors offline. Just a few seconds more, he muttered. The gate screeched open just as a blast of plasma scorched the wall beside them. Ethan pulled Lyra through, slammed the panel, and jammed the lock with a metal rod. They collapsed on the other side, gasping. Lyra looked at him, her fur singed, her voice trembling. They'll never stop. I know, Ethan said, his hand still shaking. But neither will I. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. You're risking your whole life for me, Ethan. He smiled weakly. Then it's finally worth something. A faint rumble echoed above, the sound of engines. Lyra looked up, recognizing it instantly. They're taking me to the research vault, she whispered. That's where they finish us. Ethan's eyes hardened. Then that's where I'll go next. Outside, the morning sun rose over the colony, golden and calm, hiding the war beginning below. And in the shadows of that rising light, a single promise was born. A promise that would break every law for the sake of one girl who refused to stop existing. The lab loomed ahead, a fortress of glass and metal buried deep under the desert plains. Its walls pulsed faintly with blue light, each beat echoing like a heart. Ethan crouched on the ridge above it, his clothes torn, his hands blistered, his mind burning with one thought. She's inside. It had been 3 days since Lyra's capture. He hadn't slept. He'd hacked drones, stolen food, and followed the encrypted signals until they led him here, to the facility where they erased mistakes. He whispered to himself, "Hold on, Lyra, I'm coming." The guards below moved in pairs, Felirians and humans together, eyes cold and mechanical. The world had changed overnight. Peace had become control. Cooperation had become fear. Ethan waited until the storm rolled in. Lightning cracked across the horizon and the wind howled like an angry beast. In that chaos he moved in a shadow among shadows. He slipped through vents, crawled through maintenance ducts, and finally reached a glowing corridor humming with power. Behind a glass wall, suspended in blue fluid, floated Lyra. Her silver fur shimmered faintly. Her eyes were closed and wires ran from her chest to the machines around her. She looked peaceful, too peaceful. Ethan's throat tightened. No. He smashed the glass panel on the control console, tearing out cables and shoving them into his toolkit. Sparks flew. A warning siren screamed through the hall. Inside the chamber, Lyra's eyes flickered open, golden, wide, terrified. "Ethan," her voice echoed faintly through the fluid. "I've got you," he shouted, punching commands into the system. The containment pod hissed as locks disengaged. The liquid drained fast and Lyra fell forward, weak, coughing, gasping for air. Ethan caught her in his arms. She looked up, trembling. "You shouldn't have come." He smiled through the tears. "You said that before." Didn't listen then either. Before she could answer, an alarm blared. Unauthorized extraction detected. Hybrid subject breached containment. Heavy doors slid open at both ends of the corridor. Soldiers poured in. Ethan dragged Lyra behind a console as bullets ripped through glass. "Can you walk?" "Barely," she whispered. "But I can do something better." Her eyes glowed and brighter than he'd ever seen. The air trembled. Energy crackled around her body, silver light pouring from her skin like liquid fire. The first wave of soldiers froze mid-step, their weapons twisting in mid-air as metal bent like clay. The lights exploded. A shockwave burst outward, throwing everyone off their feet, including Ethan. When the smoke cleared, Lyra was kneeling, trembling, her fur soaked in sweat. The floor beneath her glowed with strange patterns, symbols like those on old alien ruins. "Lyra," Ethan whispered. "What was that?" She shook her head weakly. "Something inside me. I can't control it for long." He helped her up. "Then we use it while we can." They stumbled through the broken corridor, alarms wailing all around. Drones descended from the ceiling, but Lyra raised her hand. A pulse of silver light shot out, disabling them mid-air. They burst through the emergency doors out into the storm. Rain drenched their faces. Ahead, an abandoned hovercraft lay half buried in the sand. Ethan sprinted toward it, dragging Lyra with him. As they climbed aboard, searchlights swept across the desert behind them. Gunfire lit the night. "Hold on," Ethan shouted, slamming the controls. The craft roared to life, shaking violently. Lightning split the sky as they shot forward, rising into the storm. Lyra clutched his arm, her eyes glowing faintly. "You don't even know where we're going." "Anywhere," he said. "As long as it's away from here." Below them, explosions lit the desert, the lab collapsing into a sea of blue light. For a brief, breathless moment they were free, two fugitives against the stars. But as the storm cleared, Lyra looked up at the night sky. The stars above flickered strangely, forming a faint pattern, a signal. Her voice trembled. "They're not done, Ethan. That wasn't the only lab." Ethan's hands tightened on the controls. "Then we'll find the others before they do." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder, whispering softly, "You shouldn't have saved me." He smiled, eyes fixed on the endless horizon. "I didn't save you, Lyra. You saved me." The hovercraft vanished into the storm, leaving only the glow of distant pursuit and the haunting echo of machines awakening once more. Weeks passed since their escape. The stars no longer felt safe. Every night Ethan and Lyra traveled farther from the colonies, hopping from one uncharted moon to another, running from the eyes of the unified authority. Now, they lived hidden on a small island world, a quiet planet of turquoise seas and golden trees. The air smelled of salt and flowers. No cities, no ships, no scanners. Just peace. Ethan had built a small home from scrap metal and driftwood, and between two tall trees, swinging gently in the ocean breeze, hung the same old hammock. The very same one where it had all begun. Lyra lay there now, eyes half closed, tail swaying lazily. Her silver fur shimmered under the twin moons, and a faint smile touched her lips. "It feels like before," she murmured. "Like nothing ever happened?" Ethan sat nearby, mending a fishing net. "Except now you actually asked permission to use it," Lyra chuckled softly. "Did I? I don't remember that part." He looked up, smiling. "You never do." The wind carried their laughter out across the waves. For a while they spoke of simple things. The sound of the ocean, the taste of strange fruit, the way the stars looked different every night. For the first time in months, Ethan saw her truly relax. But even peace has its shadows. That evening, as the sun sank below the water, Lyra's gaze turned distant. Her tail stopped moving. "Ethan," she said quietly, "you know they're still searching, right?" "I know," he said. "They won't stop until they find me. Until they erase me." Ethan put down the net and leaned forward. "Then they'll have to erase me too." Her eyes glimmered in the moonlight, sadness and warmth mixing like starlight on water. "Why do you always say things like that?" "Because they're true." She looked away, fighting a trembling smile. "You're reckless. You're supposed to think like a human, or practical, logical, but you're the most stubborn creature I've ever met." "Guess I'm infected with Felirian traits," he said lightly. She laughed, a real laugh this time, and stretched out her hand. "Then come sit here, stubborn human." He climbed into the hammock beside her. It creaked under their combined weight, swaying gently beneath the twin moons. Lyra's head rested on his shoulder, her fur brushing against his neck. For a moment the universe was silent. Only their heartbeats and the rhythm of the sea existed. "Ethan," she whispered, "do you think there's a world where I could walk in daylight? Where no one would care what I am?" He looked up at the moons. "Maybe not yet. But one day. And when that day comes, we'll walk there together." Her golden eyes softened. "You always talk like the future listens to you." "Maybe it does," he said with a grin. "Maybe it owes us something after everything we've been through." Lyra's gaze turned skyward. The stars shimmered strangely again, forming a soft pulse, faint, rhythmic, artificial. "Ethan," she said slowly, "that's not a star. It's a signal," he frowned. "Another tracker?" "No," she whispered. "It's coming from orbit. From someone else like me." His eyes widened. "You mean?" She nodded. Another hybrid survived. The wind grew still. Ethan's pulse quickened as he followed her gaze. Somewhere beyond the clouds, a light blinked twice, as if answering her heartbeat. Lyra smiled faintly. "Maybe the world is bigger than we thought." Ethan reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Then maybe it's time we stop hiding." She looked at him, her expression full of quiet fire. "You'd risk everything again?" He leaned closer, his voice soft but steady. "For you, I already did." The hammock swayed gently under the moons. Waves whispered along the shore. Lyra curled closer, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe your hammock really was meant for two?" Ethan smiled, eyes closing as the night wrapped around them. Above, the stars blinked again, a coded message crossing the dark. "Hybrid Initiative, Phase 2. Somewhere out there, the story wasn't over. But for now, on that quiet island under twin moons, humanity and hope swayed together. Alive, defiant, and free.